Identifying synergy effects requires creative thinking.
Next, Brian goes on to talk about how to create synergy effects.
The question is, how can value be created? And who is likely to get it? We need to think outside the box.
To think outside the box is another popular, useful business idiom. It means to think outside the normal habits of a group or organisation. In other words, to think very creatively.
I particularly admire his ability to think outside the box. He's very original.
In many tough negotiations, it can really help if there's someone on both sides who can think outside the box.
Often, finding and creating value requires thinking outside the box.
Brian gives 2 examples of thinking outside the box. 1, carrying a product in a store not just to sell it, but because it contributes to the image of our business. And 2, buying a business not to directly add to our profit, but to control a part of the market. As he underlines, there is much more to all of this than a simple commercial transaction, that is, more than mere buying and selling. Next, the discussion turns from positives to negatives, things that can cause a negotiation to falter or fail.
There's certainly negatives as well. We often call these barriers. It's important to think of these not just in terms of obstacles that might prevent agreement, but much more subtly, as impediments to maximizing joint value.
Brian calls these negatives barriers. Words he uses with the same or similar meanings include obstacles and impediments. All of these words collocate with the verbs set up, to create, and remove, to get rid of, and they use the preposition to. For example, Brian says it's important to remove obstacles to maximizing joint value. That means to get rid of things that prevent all sides from getting more benefit. Together, all these negatives, obstacles, impediments, and so on, are referred to as blockage, which must be overcome or defeated. Let's listen to some more examples that demonstrate this important vocabulary.
It was a real challenge to remove the barriers that had been set up, but in the end, we succeeded.
Overcoming blockage is a process of getting rid of obstacles in the road to an agreement.
A typical impediment to compromise is an overemphasis on price.
The discussion of blockage leads into the next important strategic consideration, power. As Brian thinks of it, this means the ability to set up or remove barriers which, depending on what side you are on, can be a blessing or a curse. This last phrase forms a common idiom. It refers to something that can be bad or good, depending on the situation. We also say something is both a blessing and a curse. Listen to some more examples of this expression.
Fierce competition can be both a blessing and a curse.
Time constraints can be a blessing and a curse, both speeding things along and causing people to give up without reaching agreement.
Having a clear bottom line can be both a blessing or a curse. It's often better to be fairly flexible in your approach.
What is the last point that the interviewer raises in the discussion before the interview draws to a close? It's ethics or morality. The interviewer poses the question, do we need to think of morally what is the right thing to do? How does Brian respond?
If you had asked that question to me 15 years ago, I might have laughed. But these days we think of ethics in broader terms to include the environment. corporate social responsibility, shareholder rights, and all these areas have a lot of potential value for companies.
Brian's opinion is that ethics have become more and more important to business. Examples he gives are the environment, corporate social responsibility, often referred to as CSR, and shareholder rights, which mainly refers to the right of company stockholders to information, but also to the right to dividends or profit share, and the right to cast votes. As Brian points out, all these moral issues are areas of great potential value to companies. Let's explore all these expressions with example phrases.
Corporate social responsibility is an area of great potential value to companies these days, since it can help companies build brand image and loyalty.
More and more companies are recognizing the potential value of environmental protection.
There is good evidence that expanding and protecting shareholder rights actually can have a positive effect on stock price.
Now it's your turn to practice. First, we'll review some of the verb collocations that we just learned. In a moment, you'll hear a series of sentences with a verb blanked out or replaced with a beep. Repeat the whole sentence, supplying the missing verb in the correct form. For example, if you hear,
It is important to obstacles to reaching an agreement.
you will say,
It is important to remove obstacles to reaching an agreement.
let's give it a try.
To reach an agreement, it's necessary to blockage. Answer. To reach an agreement, it's necessary to overcome blockage.
Ideally, negotiation is a process of joint value. Answer. Ideally, negotiation is a process of maximizing joint value.
We have to try to outside the box on this. Answer. We have to try to think outside the box on this.
Let's try to think of ways to more value to customers. Answer. Let's try to think of ways to deliver more value to customers.
Next, we'll use the same method to review key vocabulary. You'll hear another series of cues. As before, one word is blanked out with a beep. Repeat each sentence, supplying the missing word.
After many mergers, the promised failed to materialize. Answer. After many mergers, the promised synergies failed to materialize.
It's not all that clear to me where she is from. Answer. It's not all that clear to me where she is coming from.
Fierce competition can be both a and a curse. Answer. Fierce competition can be both a blessing and a curse.
More and more companies are recognizing the great value in environmental protection. Answer. More and more companies are recognizing the great potential value in environmental protection.
Corporate responsibility is an area of great concern to many companies these days. Answer: corporate social responsibility is an area of great concern to many companies these days.